G'day, I'm Matt. This channel is called The Right Car, and this here is the new LDV T60 Max Plus. It's the flagship version in the T60 range, and it gets a heap of extra things over the existing models. A revised interior, it's got new rear suspension with coil springs, it's got four-wheel disc brakes, it's also got a new look, and it's got extra safety technology and equipment as well. So, should you buy this ute, and is it good value still? Well, stay tuned and you'll find out. If you've already subscribed, thanks very much. If you haven't, please do, and ring the bell to keep up to date with all of my reviews. Let's check it out, shall we? If you want to know all about the other LDV T60 models in the lineup, you can hit the link in the description below to check out my review of the mainstream range. This is the new addition in the lineup, and the pricing is a little higher than some of the other models. Now, you'll see pricing on your screen pop up for ABN holders and also for private buyers, so it will depend on your circumstances as to what you pay for this vehicle. And there are a few different versions of the Max Plus available, including a manual and a auto, and that's the standard tub version. And then there's the mega tub version as well, which is super duper practical and adds a bit of extra cost to the equation too. But all versions in the Max Plus lineup have the same standard features, including 18-inch black alloy wheels, and there's also LED lighting at the front, a new look front grille and headlight array, and it actually looks a fair bit more, well, modern than some of the other versions of this ute. And there's roof rails, there's side steps, there's a spray-in tub liner, you get a lockable tailgate as well, you get that new coil spring rear suspension at the back, and you also get black leather interior trim with red stitching. There's heated seats, there's a heated steering wheel, there's a new 12.3-inch screen, digital instruments as well, and it all looks and feels a whole lot different on the inside compared to the other versions. And there's heaps of extra safety equipment fitted to the Max Plus versions of the T60. I'll tell you about that later on, but let me tell you about some of the alternatives that you might want to consider if you're looking at this ute for this kind of money. Right, when it comes to affordable alternatives to this, there are a few really good ones out there. The first one I recommend you go and check out is the SsangYong Musso. It's available as a standard length model and also an XLV long version. And I reckon that it's one of the better driving basic utes that is out there right now. It's got a lovely diesel engine. It's also got 3.5 ton towing capability, plenty of room on the inside, but annoyingly, they still haven't fitted a lap sash center rear seatbelt to that model, which is a bit disappointing. Look, I've got a detailed review with all the stuff you need to know about it in the description below, so make sure you check it out if you are interested in that ute. Also, down there you'll find a link to the GWM Canon ute review that I did, and I still think that that stands out as one of the better options as well because, well, it's got all the active safety technology boxes ticked. Some of it's annoying, but otherwise it's actually a fairly safe ute. It's got a decent turbo diesel engine, plenty of space on the inside, and a more upmarket interior than some of its rivals as well. So it could be really good choice for you if you are after a really budget-friendly model because, hey, it starts at a very low price point and doesn't top out very high either. And there's the all-terrain, off-road focused XSR model as well for about 50 grand. So that might stack up for you if you are planning to hit the trails. And hey, if you are looking at spending maybe just a little bit more to get more of a mainstream branded ute, you could go and look at the Mitsubishi Triton. It starts at around 45 grand for the dual cab models. So it could be a good option for you. And I reckon that if you're spending up to about $55,000 to $60,000, you'll be getting into a really, really good version of the Triton. But tell me what you think. Does the Triton cost too much now? Are all utes getting too expensive? Are any of those going to suit your needs and your budget? I'd love to hear from you. Hit me up in the comments and let me know. The front end design of this ute reminds me of, well, a blend of Hyundai Palisade and Mitsubishi Triton and a few other vehicles in the segment and the segments adjacent as well, because that seems to be the theme at the moment. Yes, you do have LED daytime running lights. They're the ones at the top. And then there's LED headlights down below. And they are a bit different to the other versions of this ute. Now, it's still about the same length, 5.4 meters long for the standard version, which is this one here. And then if you choose the Mega Tub, it's about 5.7 meters long. Now, you will notice that it does sit just a smidge higher. It's got better ground clearance because of this revised suspension layout. I'll put some figures on your screen now for the off-road angles and so forth, and also the ground clearance, so you can see for yourself that there has been a bit of a change. And counterintuitively, the switch to the coil spring rear suspension, which I'll show you now, has actually meant an improvement to payload capacity. Now, LDV says that they've made the changes to make it more drivable and livable and capable, and you'll see the payload capacity changes on your screen now. So yes, that could make the difference to you and your business, or you might just think, well, that's interesting, but I don't really care. Tell me what it's like to drive. We'll get to that. It's got a spare wheel underneath the tray there as well. It's a 17-inch steel spare, not a full-size alloy. And let's have a look in the tray. It's got an assisted open, which is nice. Yes, some other utes at $20,000 more don't even have that, so that's good to see. Yes, it does have a spray-in tub liner, also standard. Another nice thing to see. And you've got tie-down hooks in the edges of the tray there, and at the headboard too. There's no light or power outlet in the back, but I don't think that really matters at this price point. And honestly, I would rip that sailplane off because it gets in the way when you're trying to reach in from the front of the tub. Now, the dimensions, you'll see them on your screen now. It's a pretty generous tub. You won't be able to fit a standard Aussie pallet in the back though, so keep that in mind, but it still might be good for you. One other thing, it might have an assisted drop for the tailgate, but it's not assisted to lift, so it is kind of bloody heavy to shut it. And at the back, you'll see that there is your reversing camera, so it is offset from the center. Might make backing up to hitch a trailer or something a little bit less ideal than it could be. And you've got a lock there, so you can lock the tailgate if you want to. Not too bad. And I also like the fact that you do have these steps at the back on this bumper, so you can actually step up into the tray if you need to. It feels like a completely different ute inside this updated version of the T60, for the most part anyway, because, well, it's seen a massive glow up, this interior, because of these twin 12.3-inch screens. So you've got a digital driver info screen there. It doesn't have a heap of configurability to that display, but you do get a digital speedo that shows up there when you are moving, and it is very crisp and easy to look at. And then you've got your media screen over here, which isn't just a media screen, it has a heap of other features as well. So it's got your Apple CarPlay wireless, and that's only if you choose the auto. And also, if you choose the auto, you get a wireless phone charger there, but you don't if you choose the manual, because obviously you've got to have a gear shifter there. So you miss out on a few features if you choose the manual, but you are getting wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as well if you choose the auto version. You still get those smartphone mirroring systems, but they're plug-in if you choose the manual. Okay, so it does have the stuff you would expect in terms of the media screen. Yes, you've got radio, you've got AM and FM, no digital radio in this ute though. There's a few other menus and stuff to play with if you want to. There's even things like a scene center, so you can rapidly cool things down or warm things up or freshen things up depending on what you want to do, or you can just have your standard aircon as well. Look, you've got climate control through the screen as well, and that is a menu screen in itself, but there is also a panel down here for fan control. It's a touch sensitive panel, so I haven't tested it with gloves, but I imagine it won't be very good because it's not very good with naked digits. And then you've also got heat control over there as well. So look, I think that it's interesting to see that tech fitted to a ute. It just might not be as practical for a work ute as it might be for a personal vehicle. Yes, in there is where you'll also adjust your recirc and your demisters, but there's also demister buttons down there too, and a home button as well, or you can just leave everything on auto if you want to as well. So let's go back to the home screen. Yes, there's a bunch of other information on the screen here, including your seat heating controls. So yes, you've got front heated seats, and in fact you've also got a heated steering wheel, and that does do its job in the morning when it's bloody cold outside, as I can attest, because it has been very, very cold outside. Yes, so this screen here, another one you have to go through a screen to do. There's no buttons for your seat heating. And that's sort of the theme with this new generation of vehicles, isn't it? There's a car menu as well. So you can keep an eye on your tire pressures, your DPF, yes, your diesel particulate filter. It'll come up and tell you if it needs to be refreshed, I guess. And you've got trip computer menus there as well. A little bit of a secret tip before we get to the efficiency section. Your service interval information will also come up there. There's so many menus to this screen. Honestly, it's a little bit overbearing in terms of getting your head around it. And yeah, there's even more. You can go into the settings and then you can adjust things like your driving assistance settings. There is a speed limit prompt. If you want it on, you can leave it on, but it's off at the moment because it's a bit annoying. And the lane keeping assistance feature, I'll tell you a little bit more about that when we get to the driving section. There's a few driving modes in here as well that you can play with. You can put on your hill descent through the screen. Again, it would have been better just with a button. And yes, a few other things that you might want to play with in this screen as well. Honestly, I could spend half an hour just telling you about the things that you can do with the screen, but I want to show you what else there is about this cabin that you want to know about. So up here, yes, you do have your vents. You've got your four-wheel drive selector there and an electronic park brake, which is nice to see. Down here, you've got a pair of cup holders. I'll just move the key out of the way. And that is actually a closable section. And that finish on that closable section is like, I don't know, like marble flooring or something. I think it's a really, really nice finish. And behind there, there's also a pair of USB ports and a 12 volt. That can be removed if you just want to have a big storage tray, and it goes in underneath that section there as well. So if you want to hide something down there, like maybe something you're hiding from the apprentice, some cash or something like that, you could do that, I guess. And then you've also got a covered center console bin there as well. And yes, the black leather trim with the red stitching continues on. You've got electric seat adjustment for both front seats. There are decent sized pockets in the doors, but only a pretty small glove box. And it is lockable though. I know that that is something that tradies love. So good to see that that's continued on. There's a different material finish across the dashboard and soft touch plastics on top as well. And the steering wheel, well, it's basically the same as it was. But hey, I think that for the most part, this is a pretty practical cabin design and cabin space. But I will just say that while these little knobby sections on the side here might look tough and technical, if you sit with your leg up like that, you're going to rub against them. And if you have shorts on, you're not going to like that, I don't think. All right. There's one other thing I just want to touch on before we go into the back seat. You're probably wondering, well, where's the gear selector? It's not there. It's up there on the steering column. So it's a stalk off the steering column, like a Mercedes almost. You push in the button at the end to put it into park. You go up to go into reverse, down to go into drive, which might seem counterintuitive, but that's how you do it when you're shifting with a stick shifter. And on the other side, the stalk there is basically your everything stalk. So it's got your wipers and also your high beam lights and your blinkers. But if you want to turn on the regular lights, that's one thing you have to do through the screen as well. Go to car, no, go to settings, yes, go to lamps, yes. So you'll probably just leave them on auto lights anyway, but if you do want to turn the headlights off or put them on all the time or whatever, you can do that through the screen, but there's not actually a control on the stalk to do that. You get paddle shifters too, which is weird. All right, let's check out the back seat space and see what it's like. So this seat is set for my driving position. I'm 182 centimeters or 6 foot tall. And just like a lot of the other Chinese utes, there's plenty of space here. Like I've got heaps of legroom. Somehow they managed to do this cabin design thing a bit better than the Thai-made utes. There's lots of footroom and headroom is also very good. So if you've got 3 big workers with you, they should be able to fit across the back seat here, or if you've just got 3 big kids, it should be okay as well. Now, speaking of that, you've got a pair of ISOFIX points in the window seats, and also behind these seats, just excuse the light, there's a pair of top tether points, which is actually really, really handy. A lot handier than having one of those top center tether points where you never feel like you're getting enough tension on the top tether strap. Yes, I know that's kid talk, but if you don't have kids, it won't matter to you. If you do, it will. Now, There's also a flip down armrest with cup holders, which is another good thing to see. There are bottle holders in the doors. There are map pockets on the seat backs. You've also got directional air vents here, which is good, and a single USB-A port, which is okay, and another little storage section down there. And the transmission tunnel thing is not that big of a deal here. I want to show you one other thing with this back seat, so just give me a sec. If I pull this little lever here, you'll see that you've got extra storage underneath the seat, including that's where your jack is stored, and on the other side there's a little bit of extra covered storage where you might be able to hide some contraband. I don't know why I've got contraband on the mine. Anyway, what do you reckon? I think it's pretty good, eh? No changes under the bonnet. It's still got the 2-litre bi-turbo 4-cylinder diesel engine with 160 kilowatts and 500 Newton meters, and it's 4x4 only, and it comes with the choice of a 6-speed manual or an 8-speed auto from ZF. And the brand reckons it's tweaked the software to ensure more linear power delivery for this updated model, but we'll get to that in a sec. Now, towing capacity is 750 kilos for an unbraked trailer, 3,000 kilos for a brake trailer, which is below the best in class, but actually probably a little bit more realistic about what you can expect to tow with something like this. Now, if you're expecting huge changes to the drive experience, just temper those expectations a little bit, because, well, it's still one of the more rudimentary drive experiences in this segment. Remember though, it's not the most expensive ute that you can buy, so don't go expecting the most premium drive experience, and you should be okay. But the change to coil springs at the rear has made a difference to the drive experience. It does feel, well, it's still firm, and it's certainly not the most comfortable ute in the segment, but it does have a different driving character to it now. It's less clumsy feeling over bumps, a bit more resolved feeling, and a bit more settled in different situations, but it is still firm. Remember, it's still designed to cope with a pretty decent load on the back or attached to the back, so don't go expecting it to be the smoothest riding thing that you'll ever experience in the ute world. And now we're going to go over my bumpy street just to see how bumpy it is. It's not actually my street, but it's a street nearby that sort of gives me an indication of how bumpy the ride of a vehicle is, and it's pretty bumpy. It's not super duper unsettled, and I think based on a few days of testing, I could live with this ride, but probably more readily live with this ride compared to a Hilux or something. So that's saying something, isn't it? And while it is certainly a little bit better than it was in terms of the general refinement levels from the engine, or maybe it's more the usability levels in terms of the way that it builds momentum and doesn't necessarily have quite as much hesitation from a standstill, it does still have some noticeable turbo lag when you do come to a stop. I'll just do a stop here and put my foot back down so you can see for yourself. Yeah, okay, so it is noticeable. There is lag there, and that can be tedious and tiresome over days and days of driving, especially if you do a lot of stop-start driving, a lot of urban driving. You might find that it's a little bit too much to live with. But it's not unusual for a diesel ute like this to have a bit of that character to it, and it's certainly not the worst that I've ever experienced, but it's certainly not the best either. And while the engine is very loud, thankfully it's not too loud on the freeway in terms of wind or road noise, so that is a tick in its favor. And I'll just say also, if you are going on the highway, you might find that the lane keep assist function is a little bit overbearing. I turned it off on my freeway run because it got to be too much. It was just too pushy. So I decided to maintain control and turn it off. And you might find yourself doing that too. Make sure you test it when you go for a test drive. It seemed fitting to do a load test with this new suspension setup to see what it's like with a bit of weight in the back for tradies out there, or for people who are just going to load up and go for a big trip. I've got about 500 kilos of sandbags in the back right now, and it does settle things down nicely, and it handles itself pretty well over bumps. I'm just going over some speed bumps now, and there's no rebound bounciness to this ute. It does seem to settle pretty quickly after a bump, which is an improvement over the leaf spring version that I've driven with a load of about the same weight before. And in that instance, it sort of bounced up and down a fair bit after the bump, but this is pretty resolved, I reckon. Now, obviously the engine still is pretty vocal and there's still some lag to contend with, but just like lots of diesel utes, it does feel pretty good with a load, and I'm actually pretty impressed with how it handles itself with about this much weight in the tray. I will also add that the brakes, well, they're four-wheel disc brakes, and they do feel a little bit soft. So if you're a tradie and you're thinking, well, this version of the ute with the coil springs won't be work ready enough for you, I would say maybe think again, because this is pretty good when it comes to dealing with a load in the back. It feels a little bit better than it does without a load in the back, in fact. On your screen, you'll see the official combined cycle fuel consumption figure for the T60 Max Plus, which is actually better than the existing versions of this ute. Obviously, those software changes have actually yielded an improvement to fuel consumption as well as performance. And now I'll show you what I've achieved across a mix of driving over a week of testing. And I think that that's not too bad. Certainly not the best that you can get in this segment, but hey, I think that if you are looking for a cheap ute, you'll have to cop a little bit higher fuel consumption as a result of that. This ute achieved the maximum 5-star ANCAP safety rating in 2017, and that rating is about to expire. So if you need a cheap ute with a high score, time is running out in this particular instance, but the T60 Max Plus adds even more technology to the range, which hasn't been seen up to this point. Things like autonomous emergency braking, which works above 8 k's an hour, up to about 130 k's an hour. There's also a lane keeping assistance feature and adaptive cruise control. But those are only included if you choose the auto version of this ute. And look, if you choose the manual, you're getting things like front and rear parking sensors, a lane departure alert system, and also a surround view camera system as well. But it's a pretty poor camera system. Despite having that technology, the lens quality really lets it down. You're still missing out on things like blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert. So it's not necessarily cutting edge in terms of what you're getting, but you are getting more in this Max Plus model than in the other versions, and if you want to see what they get or what they miss out on, make sure you hit the link in the description below and check out my other review of the T60. All versions come with 6 airbags, dual front, front side, and full-length curtain coverage. LDV offers a 7-year, 200,000k warranty for its ute, and I think that is a very, very good level of cover for this class. Now, there's also 5 years of roadside assistance thrown in with this vehicle, and your service intervals are every 12 months and 15,000 kilometers. But LDV is one of the only manufacturers left in Australia that doesn't offer any form of capped price servicing plan, so it might be more like guesswork in terms of being able to figure out what this vehicle will cost to maintain over the years of ownership. If I was going to buy an LDV T60, this would definitely be the one I would pick. It is an improvement over the existing versions of this ute. It's got more features, more wow factor, and a nicer drivability to it as well. But is it worth the money? Well, it's getting up there in terms of asking price, and some of those competitors do make compelling arguments. But which would you pick? Let me know in the comments section below. I'd love to hear from you, and if there's any other vehicles you'd like me to review, leave a comment and I'll see if I can get to it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.